everybody to put on their cameras if you're possible. And we're starting today with a very technical professor and speaker, Katarzyna. Everybody to put on their cameras if you're possible. And we're starting. So we have some with a very technical professor and speaker, with Katarzyna. Everybody to put on their cameras. Few seconds, please. It was like reflecting with the audio. So before starting with the speakers, I would like to ask everybody, how are you? Have you been here before? I see Martin as well. I think, yeah, you have been here before. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I've been a couple of times before, yes. So, but I'm back.
Right.
I'm
back.
I'm eager to know, eager to hear.
Look at that. And can I ask, why are you back again? And why do you think it's interesting to join?
It's always interesting to hear, scientists and, innovative people talk about the segment you're working in. We are also very close to our own launch of our products. So it's always interesting to see other companies, other solutions, other thoughts. And sometimes I just get amazed by the great ideas they have, and my mind starts, being very, very uptight and very interested, starting to see how we could implement similar products or just get into contact with the companies that talk here. So I think it's very, very, very valuable for us, for our company, and for me, to know about this segment. So I think it's a very valuable network. I'm all for it.
That's a very strong answer. Thank you very much. And I would like to ask the same to Yayoi. If I pronounce it right, I have to be correct with the names, of course. So correct me if I'm wrong. Yayoi, yes?
You got it perfectly.
Oh, okay, great. Can I ask you the same? Do you think these meetings are valuable, and can I ask why so?
Yes, because we learn so much from each other, especially we have different projects, different types of device or software that we have been working on. And if we can get more insight from other people's ideas, solutions, and how we can achieve our common goal together to solve the issues with dementia, I think that's paramount.
Right. Also a very, very strong answer. And yeah, today we will have the speakers, of course, and it's also very much possible to have some interaction, to network, to ask each other questions. So if you have a question, please ask it. You can raise your hand as well. It always works really well with Zoom. So people can see that you have a question. You can also put it in the chat, and then everybody is super sure about your question. Jill is here as well. Jill, welcome. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And being an entrepreneur, Jill, and the winner of the World JAIN Challenge, can I ask you also the same question? Do you think these meetings are valuable, and why?
Yeah, first of all, the contact and sharing ideas and technology developments, I think, are crucial for dealing with getting technology into our market. And what we have seen is that the healthcare market is by definition not one that embraces new technology and new ways of working very easily, right? It's one of the oldest trades in the world, and they are sometimes a little bit stuck in their ways.
Right.
So finding ways together to bring new ideas, new technology to market, I think is quite valuable.
Quite valuable. Thank you very much. Yes. And again, if there are questions or if you want to network, please make it clear. We will listen to our very interesting speakers and it will be inspiring. So please ask questions in the chat, or again, raise your hand, because we will go to our first honorable speaker, Katarzyna Weck, Professor of Computer Science, Quality of Life Technologies Lab, University de Genève. Katarzyna's research interests revolve around the fundamental and algorithm problems, as well as human-centric challenges of the systems enabling an assessment and improvement of human behavior, health, and quality of life in the long term. The title of her talk is Protocol for Deriving Digital Biomarkers for an Assessment of Cognitive Decline. Are we too early? Qatar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this honorable invitation and introduction. And I would like to share the host, but it has been disabled. So I should have marked it before.
Yes, now you're able. And also hi to all the new ones in the meeting. I see Jana, I see also Robert Schmidt. We don't see your screen. Yeah, we saw your screen. If you share again.
How about right now? No?
I think you have to share it again. Serafima, hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Well. It's interesting. Okay.
Stop sharing and then share again. Luckily, this is an informal meeting.
Yes, however, and I'm computer science is feeling every time we go through the same, right?
That's going okay.
Exactly.
Very good.
It's working.
Thank you.
Yes, perfect. So I have changed a bit of a title specifically because it's I wanted to make it more specific for this meeting, but also it's because it's reflecting a major work of my student Igor, who's supposed to be here, but unfortunately it's not available. So I'm presenting the work on quality of life in with this specific emphasis on Alzheimer's disease. And I will tell you why I'm thinking we're too early, and also why what happened along this setting up this project. So we do not have yet results. The goal of this Providemus Alzheimer project, as my student has named it, is to understand if you can screen for Alzheimer's disease up to 20 years before even specific symptoms are happening. And we have been discussing this with the memory clinic colleagues from Hospital University of Geneva. And we understood also from the literature, it's a lot of data which you need to collect longitudinally and do very detailed statistical analysis of different data sets, like not just characteristics of the individual with respect to their maybe family, like genetics and preconditions, but we look into physiology, symptoms, functioning, and environmental. And let me tell you, we all know the rationale, but we also know the fact that it's many of research focus are happening too late, when there is maybe secondary prevention of dementia or mild cognitive impairments, understanding where is this, where already is the person on this span of time where we should be acting early. So our idea was we should be acting, or we should be doing something early. We all have potential of collecting the data early before the mild cognitive impairment happens or dementia. So when we look at the similar projects where there is a use of technologies, we could see that major research efforts are when there is already some symptoms, right? The stage 2 and stage 3. And then what we would like to do with our in our project, as I'll show you, it's to get into, oops, now it's overreactive. We would like to understand if, with respect to leveraging the personal technologies, which we are using, as I will tell you, smartphone and wearables, if you could get into understanding where this before the preclinical Alzheimer's disease to preclinical Alzheimer's disease stage happens. It's very ambitious. Our colleagues from medical center are looking at us. You are crazy. What do you want to do? And how much data would need to get in order to do that. So what are the tools we are using? Definitely in our lab, we are focusing on as much as possible the personal technologies. So technologies are on the body. So the first one is our smartphone, which is particular based on our previous research already. We know that it's a particular very good sensor for different daily life behaviors. Additionally, it can be a platform for deploying the patient-reported outcomes, so self-reports about different aspects of daily life and symptoms. And additionally to so-called performance-reported outcomes, maybe some of you are familiar with this. We're talking about this cognitive gains or assessments, just-in-time assessments of memory and attention and other aspects of cognition. And then additionally, what we call technology-reported outcomes would come from the wearables, where we'll have a physiology functioning. When we talk about heart rate, we talk about sleep, physical activity. And the last one, which we're incorporating in this particular protocol, is clinician-reported outcomes. I will tell you in a moment about this specific. Okay, so let's just focus. Beneath in gray, you see so-called Wilson Clary model. It's an overall model when we're looking at all these different factors, but I will just quickly explain one by one. We're starting from the left-hand side from the previous picture. We are looking at the patient-reported outcomes, self-reported, which are not just the questionnaires about people's demographics and family history, but also aspects of their cognitive aspects, like cognitive reserve, cognitive telephone screening instrument. Which actually, I should have added, it also has been also developed by our colleagues at aging center in University of Geneva. Then we have different inventories, right? These are the self-reported and patient-reported outcomes, which are clinically validated, and there's the scales, instruments, evaluations with sometimes long recall period, like for example, in the last month or in the last 2 weeks, have you had this particular challenges or have you had this particular symptoms? So we are going to use this particular inventories and self-reports as recommended by our colleagues from member clinics. So as I said, cognitive reserve index, screening, cognitive telephone screening instruments, hostility, memory questionnaires, anxiety, depression, stress, and affect scales. So these are the self-reports, the battery of self-reports. Then let's go into the second one, which will be deployed on the phone, is the performance-reported outcomes. And there we are looking into functional status of the individual, looking at attention, activity, motor actions, processing speed. And for this, we are again using something which has been already validated in the domain, which you may say it's kind of cognitive games, which are then deployed on the phone, and they're going to be validated on the phone. So here's an example for processing speed activity, which needs to be done by the individual. For typing performance or processing speed, as I said, motor actions, and other aspects like activity shifting, for example. Because it's done on the phone and because it has been validated on other platforms, we also need to go, as I mentioned, through the validation process. So once again, the first one were self-reported, how do you feel, and questionnaires. This is more related to performance, doing as fast as possible, as accurately as possible, as diligent as possible, these particular tasks, which then are evaluating the cognitive status of the person in the moment. Okay, attention control and memory. Okay, so we call performance-reported outcomes, and I guess many of you know about this. Now, getting into technology-reported outcomes is where our smartphone and wearable comes into play, and we understand then, going back to the Wilson-Clary overall model of how we see the individual and variables, which are describing this individual. Then we look into biological and physiological variables from particularly from smartwatch. Maybe you heard about this Withings. We're using this. I'm not selling anything, but we're using this particular device, which is produced in Europe. I think that's very important, where we have a heart rate variability, we have a sleep aspect, and we have a physical activity, which is then coming to the functional status, the physical functioning, including the duration of sleep and sleep placement in 24 hours, but also like physical activity. We may go into additional, we will go into additional analytics of gait and step length and other aspects of like walking. And then also we may derive based on the device usage, the smartphone usage, we may derive application usage from which we will derive aspects of social interaction and other aspects of environment, which is then put on the bottom. I think somebody needs to mute, which is put on the bottom. So like season or weather, relative location. These are the things which we can also collect from the phone, as you can imagine. So once again, phone and the wearable are for biological, physiological variables, and also functional status and some aspects of environment the person is in. And then getting into the last, which is the clinician reported outcomes. That's where when you think about the when you think about our protocol, I'm saying we want to have some view on changing behaviors 20 years before the disease is diagnosed. That's very ambitious, but usually what happens is we'll get into a clinician reported outcomes, meaning some blood tests, for example, right? So here we have a blood markers, and which are this AB levels and tau-mediated injury. We'll have also the brain scans of the individuals. However, I have to say that where it comes as why are we there too early, because we've been rejected by ethics commission, pointing out we cannot just simply bring the blood markers and brain scans of everybody just because we want. Even if we have a project, we have a budget for that. It's not ethical to just for the individuals who are going to be involved for many years in our protocol to just being called on a regular basis for this particular test. So there was this particular, how do I say, protection from ethical perspective. I would like to also hear your opinion. So let me tell you, having all of this different aspects which are now put together in this big picture of all these different variables being collected, we are going to mostly focus on what we can get from the phone and wearable and self-report. And if there is and performance-based, so it's also the phone. And then if there is a specific aspect of incidental finding that we can, together with clinician, we can reason that there may be some reason for bringing the person to memory clinic, then we may bring the person. So the first phase of the study, which is going to start next year, is the persons are going to just help us to understand if there's any specific signals. What should we look for in what we think it's already, like in the literature, there are some aspects which are shown, like what are we really that ambitious and that visionary that we want to pick up signals which may not be there from the smartphone and the wearable. And then at first, it's going to be a 2-year study for feasibility of assessing this, the data coming up from the wearable and the phone. And there will be no, again, because we got rejected by ethics committee very badly, but also our memory colleagues told us that was very ambitious of you, asking for this, the clean rows, meaning the blood tests and the brain scans. They pointed out that first get some feasibility of people wanting to have other types of data, meaning people providing you up to 2 years of how they use the phone and how is the heart rate and how they sleep and how they go around or not. And then in this protocol for 2 years, we'll come back to them and there will be some questions about feasibility, like would you be willing to provide your blood tests or be in this more clinical protocol if you know that it could help you in the future? But also for the persons in this 2 years, for the persons who there will be incidental findings with respect to their declining cognition or some kind of incidental finding, because we're going to be assisted by our clinicians, then these persons will definitely be sent to the memory clinic, and the brain scan, and then the blood tests are going to be made if the persons agree. And then again, we'll collaborate on how do we link it to the previous usage of the phone and wearable. So it's complicated. So we would like to assess the cognitive changes just using the wearable and smartphone, and validated scale self-reports, and then performance-based assessments. And we have learned that we've been definitely too early in a sense of understanding to have a big picture and to have a gold standard like the blood test and the brain scans, right? And then it's in sense we're too early, and in the sense we know, understand we need to provide the feasibility of people even providing this other behavior data sets for a longer study. And so that will be 2 years study. We would like to have people in Geneva, so we already have some persons who sign up online, and we made a little advertisement, although we're still waiting for the final approval of the ethics without the clinically reported outcomes. 200 cognitive normal participants, fluent in English or French, 45 years old, just living their daily life in Geneva, and using the device, any device, their own device. So it's going to be bring your own device, because our software is running on any device, I mean Apple and Android, and then we'll provide them with the smartwatch, which is going to collect data without their how do I say without any problems. We already have this in other protocols. This is my student who most likely is going to follow up in case there's more questions, and also he's going to be responsible for overall development. And I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you. Thomas, you are muted.
Thank you very much, because it is very interesting, and we do have questions. First question was from Carl. Let me look it up, because there are a lot of questions. Does measuring social withdrawal and social app usage come with privacy issues?
I'm coming back to the big picture. Yes, 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 and yes. And we have, I mean, what can I say? Yes, it's everything. It's in informed consent. So there is an opportunity. In the past, we also did a study in which there was opportunity of how do you say, checking in which data sources would be leveraged by us and which should be like disabled in the app. And in this protocol, we would like to collect everything. Yes.
Nice, nice. Carl, is that a good answer to your question? Sorry, there's like a police car here. I'm gonna check the chat. All right, all right. Let's just go on to, yes, thank you, Carl. He says, very good, thank you. Okay, so next question. When carrying out, Yvonne says, the project, how will you ensure that the results generalize?
That's a very important and very interesting question. First of all, we would have a specific inclusion criteria for anyone who would like to be in this protocol is welcome, but also we are going to specifically look for diversity. There's up to 40% of Geneva residents are of foreign origin, so they are not Swiss, and they just move here and they leave, and many of them they are Swiss or at some point. But never mind, the fact is that it's a huge diversity, and there's a large amount of population, not large, but we're talking about 500,000 people, right? So we're talking about like some underrepresented areas which are poorer, and we are going to look there, and we're going to have a help from our memory clinic colleagues who are experienced in accessing or contacting these particular populations for screening, because these are the most risky, like these are the persons at risk who may be now getting into particular troubles. Well, we are getting into inflation and everything, and it's there are populations which we know that are more richer populations, like the areas of the city, and we're going to rely on our colleagues, but also make our own publicity. Yes, so definitely looking
Yvonne,
for the present.
Is that like a full answer to your question, Yvonne?
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So we have a few more minutes for extra questions. Jana, is there any examples, competition of physical activities like the cognitive activities in the phone of the participants?
Do you mean like, do they have an example of exercise? Or
Jana, could you please add on me? What's your question?
There is no intervention in this protocol.
Okay, just looking. Yeah, Jana, you're still on board, right? Do you copy?
Can I see the chat?
Yes.
Examples, competition, physical, like the cognitive activities on. Competition of physical activities. Competition. Okay, there's a mixture in this question. I think what you mean is you'd like to have a look once again what are our cognitive activities, which are the games. But don't forget, I also said our software is also deployed such it can collect any other touch data and other applications data, and we're going to also derive data information from how the people generally use their phone, how they touch it, how long, when, how many touches, and a lot of different features could be derived just by looking at how people use the phone.
Exactly. Rashri, you also have a question, I see. Could you please ask the question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, thank you for your amazing speech. It was very interesting. I was wondering if you take like any genetic risk in account when you're selecting for participants, or like age, but I saw you already have like an age group of 45 years plus. So I was wondering about genetic risk.
There will be an entry questionnaire in which we're going to ask for family history. And we understood also from colleagues from the clinic that people who have been taking care of the parents, aging parents and seeing dementia, they're likely to come to the protocol. And I can also say that in some other projects we have submitted that we would like that the persons coming to our protocol undergo a specific genetic tests, but also we've been bashed by the ethics committee because of that. But in general, I understand this, right? It's maybe it will be considered, but it will be based on self-reported family history and not any additional clinical evaluations, because that's too risky from ethical perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Jill Mulder from Genus Care, the entrepreneur, also has a question. Jill, the floor is yours for this question, please.
Yeah, it's very interesting to measure and try to find an early stage on if people develop dementia. In our product, we have all sorts of sensors, so we're going around a similar track. But a little bit of our issue is also, in 2 years' time, who do you know who will develop dementia, right? Because you're trying to get it in that early stage. How can you validate those results that, okay, well, this person will actually, you will only know really in 10 years' time. So how do you manage that?
No, it's excellent question. And to tell you the truth, the original proposal, which has been rejected, was having around 1,000 participants when we calculated the power. And assuming, just to make a long story short, out of 1,000 participants, we expected in 5-6 years, 30 persons above 50, when you start above 55, and we take 1,000 people, then in 5-6 years, we'll have 30 persons who may be potentially diagnosed. And we took this numbers from the literature and working with our colleagues from memory. So now, because we are scaling down, this 2 years project is, yes, we cannot assure anything. It's going to be about developing our digital biomarkers of how people touch their phone and what are the aspects of physical activity, gait, memory, and if there is any signal, it will be in self-reports or in performance, like the games, right? And we're going to be supervised of collaborating with our colleagues from Memory Clinic, and we are going to just prove that this is possible to collect this data, and we know. But
okay, I do need to run, but I would love to sit down and maybe in another call one day, because we have all these screens with elderly people today, and maybe we can do those physical games and make it part of a population that we have already in Holland that we're doing tests with. And maybe we can give you another population access. So
would be perfect. Looking forward.
Okay. So let's catch up outside the call. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Nice. I see some networking there already. Very effective. And then Robert Smith, also an entrepreneur, and also has a question about how do you measure processing speed. Robert, could you maybe explain or ask your question yourself?
I guess it's about the game.
What I see is the game. So you do that every half year or every 3 months. You let them sample.
Yes,
you sample it by doing the game
every 3 months, every 3 to 6 months, and my screen froze. Doesn't show any games. Nothing. Okay. Specifically, we know that it's going to be like a game for persons, and also we have to understand, again, as I said, the aspects of these games are developed by other colleagues in the domain, not our colleagues, but generally by the community, right? We're not the only ones, but we now deployed it on the phone. And what else I wanted to say is that it must feel like a game. It will come at the unexpected moment. We do have a power over the phone, meaning our software is going to run there and pop it up, and hopefully in more convenient place, because we also collect data about Wi-Fi, so we know if the person is at home or just arrive home or on the move or something. So we'll be looking into this more convenient times where the person will be potentially available for this few minutes interaction with the phone, which is the this game. And then what I would like to also say is, from the processing speed, it's again, it's established metrics by others, and we can just deploy it and looking forward to understand if it correlates. But there's so many context factors, right, as you can imagine.
Next to games, do you also sample behavior? Do you do behavior sampling and feeling sampling and reading it?
Definitely, wearable collects our physical activity data to the minute level and heart rate, which corresponds to stress levels and physical activity and the sleep. So we'll be able to reconstruct every day, 24-hour, how 24-hour has been spent. What else would you like to ask for behavior? Context, person is, or food, or?
No, what's also done in the behavior is that it asks, how do you feel right now? Because the current feeling of somebody gives also a very strong indication, especially on certain metrics, about the experience level.
Perfect.
You have to go on to the next speaker, and it's really interesting and good questions. So please save the questions because we can go on and on.
I'll save the question, okay, for later.
Right?
I have an answer, yes.
Yes, so maybe in the end we can answer other, because there are more questions from other. Well,
okay, so I stopped sharing, thank you.
Yeah, all right, then we do one group picture in between. Can everybody do this? It's good for the marketing for the rest. Yes, who makes a picture?
You.
Okay. Very nice. And then we go on to the next speaker. So it's really interesting that we have like multiple kinds of speakers, right? The next speaker is Minke Stahl, researcher at Vilans. She has a background in biomedical sciences and human movement sciences and worked before starting at Vilans at a rehabilitation clinic in the Netherlands, performing research with wearables and plantar pressure plates. The title of her talk is Guardian, a social robot to support monitoring, companionship, and day structure. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the nice introduction. And Kate, thank you for your nice presentation. First of all, I will try to share my screen and see if that works. And hopefully we don't have a gray box in the screen like this morning. Do you see it okay?
Oh, it is okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, my name is Minke de Staal and I will tell you something about the Guardian project I work on. But yeah, first of all, a quick introduction of Vilans. I work at Vilans. Maybe you already know Henk Herman Nap. He's my senior colleague. And Vilans is the long-term care expertise center in the Netherlands. And we do a lot of co-design, research, development, everything to get new knowledge and share that with practical fields. So we are an independent network organization, also non-profit. So we're not a scientific research center, but we do a lot of research, but also mainly with the focus of co-creation. So really incorporate the end users in everything we do. Let's see if I can go to the next. So we were founded in 2006. We have now 230 employees, maybe a bit more, because we are quite growing. And we have different websites through which we disseminate our knowledge, and they have like 7 million viewers per year. So that's quite a lot. So one of the teams within Vilans is digital care. So mainly.
Sorry, Minke, you're muted. Yes.
Oh, really? Sorry,
yes.
That's strange. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm not sure where you lost me, but
it was super interesting already, so please.
Okay. So I was talking about that Vilans also does, we do a lot of projects related to digital care, so international projects, but also smaller national projects. So we have around 40 colleagues that work on digital care projects, and we work a lot together with healthcare organizations, but also health insurance companies, sometimes IT parties. So it's quite a mix, and it's all related to give an impulse to the knowledge and of the implementation of technology, care and support. Now it's not working anymore. Now it does. So as I already told you, we do it in co-creation. So you can see a lot of pictures here on different types of projects. So we really go to the end users and ask them about what they think is important, and we try to incorporate this in our projects and also the technologies we develop.
Can I ask one question in between?
Yeah.
You didn't develop the Guardian robot, right? But you use it a lot and you promote it a lot.
Yeah, so you can see the robot here. So this is Guardian, or Misty is the robot called. We didn't develop the robot, but we developed like the app for the senior and the app for the caregivers. So it's like more the platform of Guardian we developed. So if it's done, maybe you can also use like a different type of robot that suits better to the purpose. So you can still use the Guardian platform.
So you are developing platforms for robots.
Yeah, well, I can come back to that in a
yes.
So
sure.
the goal is to develop the social companion, which should be the eyes and the ears of the informal carers and also buddy and friendly coach for the frail senior. So it's mainly focused on supporting the senior to let them live independent at their homes for a longer period, but also to support the informal carer because they are working more these days, so they can't be there every second of the day, so that they can keep an eye on their loved one from a distance, and also to help the formal carers to do like routine tasks and make it a bit more easier for them as well. So this is an international project. So we work together with different project partners. So if you have a good look, you see Kate as well on this picture. So Freelance is not the technical partner. That is, for example, Connected Care, but also Jeff, Smart Robot Solutions. So they do the technical developments of the platform, and Freelance is more supporting in the research and evaluation studies. So I don't have a really technical background, but there are partners in the project who have a technical background and do the development.
I can answer questions. I'm on the photo.
Yeah. So yeah, the methodology we use is like we have a focus on co-creation. So I will talk a bit more about that, but also we have a strong focus on ethics. So try to do it like in a responsible way, develop a social robotic. And also there's a part that's doing the business modeling. So there are like 3 different directions we work on with the whole consortium. So first of all, the co-creation, we have different iterations in which we use the experience of the end users to develop a good prototype. So the first iteration was really about getting to know the end users. So we just had an interview and asked elderly, but also healthcare providers, informal carers about their life and their care process and how much time do they take care of their loved one during the week, and also about where could maybe a robot help them, and see what the robot opportunities are. We did this in combination with desk research, and then this resulted in like a very long list in Excel with requirements for the first prototype. Also based on this information, we defined 3 personas. So to have in mind during the whole project for who do we develop this. So you can see here that we focus on frail senior. So it's not a person with dementia, but it can be someone with the early stage of maybe dementia or mild cognitive impairment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But they have some sort of, they need some sort of help. So this the frail senior. Then we have the informal carer who worries a lot about their loved one, experience also a high care load and emotional load. And they want to activate and motivate their loved one, and also make sure that their care load is decreased. Then we have the formal carer. So they are experiencing high care load as well, as you can imagine. And they don't have that much time when they come over to a patient, and they have to do all these routine checkups. So they also want to detect how a senior is doing and prevent that something is going wrong. So that was an important aspect of this persona as well. So based on all these personas, we try to make it a bit more clear on which elements we should focus with the robot. So in the end, the monitoring aspect was quite important, the social companion, and also the coaching elements. So with this, we developed several wireframes and mockups and scenarios. And this was unfortunately during Corona, so we had to do it partly digital. But we went with these scenarios back to the end users to ask them to validate, like, okay, we heard all these things during the interviews. We made a first design. Yeah, is this something you like or not? Do we miss certain things? What should be different? So we did a lot of validation in this way, and it was really nice to do. And in the end, yeah, we used these main findings from these iterations to further develop the prototype. So you can see here some of the findings, that it was important to combine the mental and physical well-being, to make it more personalized, to be able to use only the modules someone needs to use. Also combine it with a daily pattern, and that really is a combination between social companion and monitoring, and that it is not only a monitoring device. So in the end, the technology, the Guardian system, as I already told, it's more like a platform, but it consists of a robot, or you need a robot. In this case, we use Misty, you can see in this picture. We also have a tablet now with the robot, because it's not ready yet to only use the robot. So we have a tablet as well with a senior application, and then we have a caregiver application, and that's for the informal caregiver and for the formal caregiver. And together this also works through the Guardian Cloud. So this is how the robot now looks like. So in the Netherlands, we had a contest for in the zorg, or in the healthcare organization. So in the Netherlands, the robot is called Floor. And you can see here also what you can see on the senior application. So in this case, the elderly is called Anja, and they ask hi Anja, what do you want to do today? And the senior can then, for example, report how they're feeling, how they have slept. They can also see their appointments for the day. And then you can, if you select one of the options, you get an option to respond, and you can see all the different smileys. And if someone responds to these questions, then this will be sent also to the caregiver application. So the informal carer and formal carer can see how someone responded to the questions. And also reminders pop up on this tablet and are through the robot, and the elderly can respond to that as well. So then we have the caregiver application. So this is the client overview. So if, for example, a formal caregiver has several clients they follow, they can see it like in this case. So you can already see a status update. So these clients didn't do really well because they haven't reported a lot, but then you can see if someone reported their well-being, or they have taken their medication, or had their drink or not. And then when you specify and go to one client, you can see it here as well in a nice overview on the dashboard. So all the dots are a reaction from the elderly to the robot that is sent through the caregiver application. So you have like in one overview, you can see how someone is doing. Also, there is also well-being measured in this overview, and that's a skill they work on in Switzerland as well, to measure the well-being through the sounds the robot can record, but that's still in an experimental phase. So the well-being reported is really what the elderly reports by themselves. Well, quick overview of what you can do in the Caregiver app. So you can, as a caregiver, you can set like requests to report well-being, but also like for meal reminders, because a lot of elderly try to forget their snack or don't want to eat a lot anymore. So you can use this as well. But there's also just a planned message functionality. So you can just, for example, say something like, good morning, hope you enjoy your day. But yeah, you can basically put in everything you want there. There's also an overview of the care network. So you can see immediately who is active in the care network of this elderly. and they can also all be added to this caregiver application, and they can also communicate through this application with each other. Appointments, so it's more like a basic agenda functionality. And in the end, this is the prototype which we have now, so we're still working on it. And in the end, we would like to go to something similar in this video. So I hope everything works with the sound.
Guardian is a social care robot that supports seniors and caregivers. Guardian is Kate's new companion, coach and monitoring device. It gathers information about Kate's well-being, her daily activities, her preferences, and analyzes her health. Guardian reduces the workload of carers and increases the cost-effectiveness of care. Guardian is simple, effective, and affordable. For Kate's granddaughter Jessica, the communication platform and robot offers a great relief and makes her less worried. Even when she cannot be with her grandmother, she still knows how she's doing. Guardian empowers and supports Kate by obtaining and retaining oversight and allowing her carers to make informed decisions, while respecting Kate's privacy and supporting her independence and autonomy.
So now you have an idea on the project and where we want to go, but we're not there yet. So we have now performed the first evaluation. So we did like all the iterations for designing the prototypes, and now we're testing in practice how elderly react to the robot and the monitoring and the coaching. So you can see a quick overview here. So we had different sessions with healthcare providers, with elderly informal carers. And you can also see some different types of reactions, like I really enjoy when Misty asks me personal questions, such as how I felt, how I slept, or how I feel. But we also see the opposite direction during the first phase, that it can also be quite invasive, a robot in your home, and that someone said, I feel like someone is watching me. Right. So that are really different types of reactions.
So how many people can use one robot?
Every elderly has one robot in their home, so it's one robot on one client.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I see, like on the left, I see like 2 elderly people and 1 robot.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was the awareness session. So before we start testing, like in the real life setting, so as you can see with the elderly man on the right, that was in his home. But before that, we had an awareness session, because we noticed that it's quite a difficult concept for elderly, like a robot and a monitoring device, to explain up front. Right. So we decided to organize 3 sessions at a healthcare organization, that they can just come and see how the robot is working and have a nice cup of coffee and do some chit chat, just to get them to be a bit more enthusiastic and a bit more less afraid of the name and of a robot in their home.
That's a question as well, later on. But what's the price of one robot?
This robot is around 3,000 euros, but it's the most expensive one we use now, because it has like all the sensors and things we wanted for the research to be able to develop certain functionalities. But you can downscale it now, because we now know, like, okay, this we will use, this we won't use. And in the Netherlands, simultaneously, we also do a comparison study. So we have also a different type of robot. It's called Liz. It's a more simple robot, like a tablet with a 3D printed front in front of it. So we also are comparing, like, what do you need to make it work? But that robot also has like the Guardian platform. So the rest, all the functionalities are the same, but just the robot is different.
Because if I can ask, it should be cost effective, right? Like 3,000 euros, and then it takes over some tasks of healthcare professionals. So you don't need a healthcare professional anymore. It costs money as well. So you can maybe even help more elderly people, you know, like with robots. But it depends on how much the robot can do.
Yeah, definitely. So it's now mainly helping with all the reminders and the checkups. And yeah, mainly I think it's important for like prevention. So you can already see how someone is going and you can better see if I have to go there or not, or check up on if someone is sleeping already for 2 weeks very badly, you can go there and ask them about it. But yeah, there is also a track of business modeling in which we look at like how should we what is it's a reasonable price for this type of robot, and who's going to pay for it? Is that the elderly themselves, or is that through the healthcare organization? So what we do now in the late stage of the evaluation is also ask elderly informal carers, health carers, what they are willing to pay for such a device. And we hope with that information we can also make a better business case and see how much we should downscale on the price. And
it is a lot of value, right, that the robot provides. And you talk about, maybe I missed it, but about FTEs. So FTEs are like the hours of healthcare professionals, and how many FTE hours do you save, you know, like with the robot. And then again, it depends on the tasks that the robot can do. But
yeah, I think that's also a next step, because we are doing like the development simultaneously with the research. So the research is now mainly focused on do people see the value of it? And I think the real see how many FTEs you can maybe save. I think it's a next step with if the prototype is really done and ready for long-term use. And I think that's a bit too early in this project right now.
Okay, very interesting. We have some questions as well regarding time.
Of course,
but it's up to you. Can we move forward the questions, Minka?
Of course.
So okay,
but then maybe is it okay if I stop sharing my screen, because then I can see you again?
Yes.
Like that. That's better.
So Robert Smith, the entrepreneur, also makes apps. He has a question. Robert, can you please ask your question? You're still muted.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Do you also incorporate cleaning, like cleaning robots? Because that's also what a lot of elderly people have problems with.
Yeah, we didn't include it in this project. So with other projects I work on at Freelance, we also look at like the more physical type of robots with support of physical tasks. But in this case, we really focus on the social element, like
social companion.
Yeah.
And did you compare it to the Paro, that platform of the Japanese Ichiro Maruki? That's a social platform also.
We didn't. We did like in the desk research. We also looked at all the other available social assisted robotics, and try to use what is known to be working. But it's also based on a platform, Connected Care, one of the technical partners in this project, also already built in one of their projects before.
Okay. And who's in charge of the software platform? Because that's mainly what you're building, if I hear you right.
Sorry, who is in charge? Did you say?
Of the software platform, because that's mainly the development you're doing in this project.
So that's mainly that's the focus of the Italian technical partners. They are Jeff is in control of the clouds. So that's where everything comes together. So the senior application, that's the part that is developed also in Italy, and then the caregiver application is the part that's developed in the Netherlands in Connected Care. And then the more human-like interactions with the robot, that's a part of the TU Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So it's
nice questions, very good questions. Thank you. And we have to move on to the last questions before we move on to Hagen Wenzek, our entrepreneur in today's meeting. So last questions, firstly, Yvonne and Miruna. How is your biomedical background used to contribute to this? What biological concepts have been used to create this Guardian?
I think for me personally, it really helps that I worked in a rehabilitation clinic, so I had experience with like the target group or the clients, and worked already a lot with elderly in the more practical sense, because sometimes you notice that that's not really already common in projects, especially in a large consortia. So for me personally, that was the most value I took out of my first experience. And also that you really have to test it a lot, that it's because I already work like with wearables and plantar pressure plates, and I already noticed like you really have to try it out yourself a lot, but also with end users, because you always have some bugs, and that's, I think, one of the things I also really contribute to this, because sometimes the technical partners say like everything is done, now you can test, but then we know probably there will be some bug fixing along the way necessary for it to work. So it's more practical experience, I guess. And also, I have more medical background, so I know a lot about Alzheimer and getting older as well. So that I think that's helpful as well.
Nice. Another very interesting question from a marketing human interaction point of view. How do you go about eliminating the stigma surrounding the fear about robots and protection of personal details?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think that's in this project, we also really focus on responsible innovation. So we did also like focus groups with end users, but also with the project partners about like the risk and positive effects about also something like a social robot, but also like the artificial intelligence which is used. And then end users really can explain what they really like and what they dislike. So like the controlling elements, and we got a lot of questions about like the energy expenditure. So you really have to listen to them. And I think then you can also really explain it's not a monitoring tool. It's an aid, and it can also be fun. So we added like touchings when you touch the robot, different sounds, just to make it fun. And it's not only focused on what they cannot do anymore. It's more if you want to use an iPad, you want to first use it for something fun and not only for like reminding.
So maybe like the stigma is not there at all anymore. I mean, and that's a big statement, but more and more robots are being used.
Yeah, I was surprised by how many elderly already know a lot of robots. They also know most, or at least in the Netherlands, they came up with like, I use a Google Home, or I use Siri, or they already know a lot. So I think it's important to really talk to them about that on the same level, and then hopefully you don't stigmatize them in that way.
When I'm old in a few years, I don't care to use a robot like in the house. I think it's
so, new generation,
right. So let's move on to our last speaker of today. It's Dr. Hagen Benzek, PhD in electrical engineering, New York, and is a healthcare and technology expert and services entrepreneur. He co-founded companies that use advanced technologies to create service innovation in healthcare, including GI Digital and Project Epsilon. He consults on how companies can successfully scale innovation through his work at Freestyle Consulting and FOS Advisors. The title of his talk, Introducing AI in Healthcare, from Polyp Detection to Dementia Assessment. Hagen, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think I need to introduce myself any more than this. There was plenty, but still greetings from still dark New York over here. So maybe let me just jump right in. Screen. Make it big enough. Looks good on your end?
Yes.
Very good. So we're looking a bit in the challenges of adopting innovation or introducing innovation in healthcare, because that's besides my entrepreneurial work, where it goes into the weeds of actually doing it, also a little bit of a meta research activity that I'm pursuing and working with a Health Captains Club in Europe to understand the bigger challenges for the healthcare systems, for society, and then how entrepreneurs and also larger organizations need to deal with that problem of getting innovation actually adopted. Inventing is great, making innovation work is great, but adopting it at scale and serving patients at the end, that is what often fails. And then why did you do all the good work before? And compounded on that, the challenge if you do AI innovation. So we're looking at two different case studies, and those are the two companies I work the closest with, and I'm a co-founder of. And but we'll get to that in a minute. The meta slide here, and we'll go into much more detail in a moment, into the weeds, is just that overall perspective of why on earth is it so difficult to manage innovation in healthcare. And the one overarching problem is that it's just enormously complex. There are so many different stakeholders that you always need to interact with, that you need to either convince to adopt an innovation, or that you need to convince to stop blocking adopting new innovation. And I just picked whatever random network I found to document that. And that leads to an unbelievably high spend in healthcare. And a lot of innovations try to reduce costs, but they never really do. It continues to all go up. So what is it that we can do about it? But before we can figure out what we can do about it, actually noticing that that AI solutions that you try to introduce in healthcare actually make it even more complex. So you just add another layer of complexity into that problem. Because one thing that is so common with AI solutions is that it's just hard to trust them. You just have no idea what's going on. It's a black box. And that challenge is something that I try to figure out how to overcome. And the introduction of AI here in healthcare, with two N's, especially for neural network, no, that's just a typo, sorry, is that you want to create transparency. So to make this black box go away and explain how AI works. And the second, and this is what I will be talking the most in the moment, is taking a more evolutionary approach, one that people are more comfortable than the Big Bang approach and the we replace everything approach that so much is happening in AI. So, but let's make it practical and look at two use cases. I'll start with the gastroenterology one, and then we get to the one that is more in your domain on dementia detection and later on prevention as well. And so the one company, or two actually, Corporate Health is a European entity and GI Digital is the US entity I'm working on, is focused on detecting gastrointestinal diseases with a minimally invasive device. And the minimally invasive device is what my my project manager Reese is holding in his hand, and that is a video capsule. So you swallow that, it takes images of your whole gastrointestinal tract. You record the images, analyze the images, and provide a report back to the referring gastroenterologist, so you know what's going on. And one of the things that you often want to find out is, does the person have polyps that might result in a cancer going forward? If they already have a cancer, that's obviously even more important to find out. But you really like to prevent cancer. So what we developed is a company that does that as a managed service and provides everything that you need from the moment that a patient comes in with symptoms and then get referred to a gastrointestinal test. So we'll have nurses, we'll take care of getting the patient prepped, getting that capsule to the patient, into the patient. And once the data has been collected, the video is in the cloud, we have teams of nurses that analyze the video and do a pre-reading, and then doctor that validate that video, and then create a report. And that whole last section, besides all the other stuff with patient management, that last section is what is one of the most labor-intensive ones, because that capsule goes through the body in everything between 2 and 12 hours. After 12 hours, the battery is empty. Creates up to 400,000 images. And so the video itself that you need to analyze can be 5 hours long. And even if you go on fast forward very often, it might take you up to 90 minutes to analyze the video for just one person, for one patient. That is not very cost effective. That doesn't really make sense from a productivity perspective. And so therefore, we ventured out and built an AI system that uses machine learning to train a deep convolutional neural network to figure out is something that you see on an image a polyp or not, so that we can much more rapidly find out whether there are polyps, how many are there, and especially more importantly, what image doesn't contain a polyp, because way more than 99% of all images don't contain a polyp. They're just normal. They have a lot of folds or bubbles that you can see here right now. And so this AI system is therefore meant to improve the productivity of especially the nurses. And we'll come to what that actually means in a moment. But generally, just pointing out here, the key challenge that we had to undertake to come up with the right solution for this AI system is to develop a software as a medical device. Develop a software as a medical device that has the highest chance to be certified by notified body, by regulatory, in both Europe as well as in the US. And that at the stage where very few AI software tools are actually already approved as a medical device. And even in gastroenterology, there's just the second one for colonoscopy that got approved the other day by the FDA for a company called Iterative Scopes. Medtronic got theirs approved a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago. But there is very little guideline out there of how do you develop an AI system that can actually be adopted, can be approved, provides this level of transparency. And that's what we do. That's what we try to do. So we followed the most recent guidelines that were put out by the FDA, by the NHS as well, because we're working a lot in the UK, and also guidance that was provided by the European Union to create the system so that it eventually can be, has a high chance to succeed in a certification application. What it actually does is, as you can see here, it provides a score of the probability that there's a polyp on that image, or there is not. And what the AI system thinks is that down here is a small flat polyp. And then you have other images in the same sequence. So these are just right before and after from a time sequential perspective. The images, and here up there you see two cameras that are actually done because the capsule has two cameras. The redder these images, these lines are, the more there is a probability to have a polyp in there. So you have a little overview of what can you expect when you analyze the video. And then developed just a typical ROC curve here to see how much the use of that system improves the efficiency, the time efficiency, especially of the expert. And so usually it takes here up to 60, 70 minutes to get to an 80% sensitivity if you're an expert and you just use the standard tools that come with the system. And we have been able to move that up to way below 10 minutes, and we're now in the top 5-minute range, actually, to achieve a higher sensitivity than what an expert can do. So fewer missed polyps. What we're trying to do, we try to drastically reduce the total time to analyze the video down to less than 20 minutes if you're working with a pre-reader and a validator, so a doctor who is medically responsible to sign a report. We do this in a very special way. And this is actually, even though I can talk for hours around all the AI details and so forth, but what we found to make the biggest difference in actually getting this introduced and making it to work in healthcare is that we took an evolutionary approach to this. So we're not trying to build a full decision support system that can replace the human in making the assessment, and immediately once the capsule is expelled, you would see the result from the AI system giving a score about the probability that you have cancer or not. That just is not acceptable. Not today, but maybe in 5 years. But in 5 years, it will only be acceptable if we slowly but surely move there. And so we started out with using today that AI tool, which has not been yet approved because we're in the middle of a clinical trial, for quality assurance. There are no regulatory approvals needed for that because it's after the decision has already been made, after the diagnosis has been made. But it improves our quality because it's a QA system. The next step that we're going to be starting in January is once we are at a stage to be able to submit to regulatory approval, we will have not received it yet. So it would be nice, but it's not mandatory that we can support that preliminary reporting. So we're still 3 steps away from the actual use of the system in decision support. And that already improves the productivity. So this nurse that takes 90 minutes today, we expect to be able to finish their job in 30 minutes. The doctor will still take another 20 minutes. So it's still not where we want it to be, but we're starting to introduce it. We make people comfortable with how the system works. And then in 2 years, we hope that we can completely eliminate for at least the simple videos, the reporting, the pre-reading, and then ultimately be able to just no need for an expert anymore. The AI takes over the expertise. There's still a doctor who analyzes and makes a diagnosis. So that's how we're seeing evolutionary introduction to work. The second big piece that I mentioned before was the level of trust that you need to achieve and that level of transparency. And whoever wants to read a couple of papers that we published together with the University of Barcelona, or let's say the University of Barcelona team published, and I was a co-author, is to be able to explain here what the system is actually thinking. So that it's not just a score, but it highlights where on the image does the system think there is a relevant finding. And so, and that level of explainability combined with a couple of more metrics is what gives the user an insight into the workings of the AI system. And so that was a critical thing to do. But before I spend so much more time on GI, which I can spend forever long, let's quickly jump also to the second one here, and that is my work with Yayoi Sakagi, who is also on the call right now. And we're looking at the ability to assess the fitness of the brain, which is an indicator of whether you're developing at what stage of dementia you might be, but do that through musical interactions. And here again, it's about how do you introduce an innovation in healthcare that moves into AI. And here we took a very different approach than what I just discussed before. Here that approach is much more of let's introduce forest in a classical way and then start to introduce more AI in the software. So we had an observation, you had an observation, and that is that by looking at a patient and how they interact with musical notes, you could actually determine what their level of fitness of their brain is. And I'm using here some a little bit more vague terminology because it would only later on result in an understanding of how would that be able to diagnose levels of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. And that observation was implemented through very traditional algorithms. Nothing really that sophisticated, no AI involved here, and also very standard software development, requirement specification in an agile development, leading then to a more waterfall-based approach. So we are able to also move into a certification process as well. And the tool that is in the middle here is what is a screenshot of our application, where you play musical notes based on, or where you need to tap the these virtual piano keys based on the notes that you see up front, and by measuring your response time, you can figure out how your brain is really working, and or whether there's a problem with working in the brain. That drove a lot of research interest, but it had limited commercial reach. So we got paying customers. We have the University of Bergen here, and their research organization using it to conduct research. And that was nice. That was a good validation, but it's not yet where we want it to be from a commercial perspective, because that is really the step that we have started to move into just now based on the feedback that we got. And so here, this embedding the introduction of AI into healthcare, the introduction of innovation into healthcare, was one based on the early stage adoption and early stage feedback that we got from these teams, especially in Bergen, but also university and teams in Madrid, in Toronto, now in Japan as well, and even over at Novartis sponsoring a clinical trial that we were doing. That feedback also, and that was a challenge, showed us, oh, there's much more complexity that we need to introduce. We need to look at many more parameters that come into the mix here. We need to look at potentially using not just the diagnostic part, but we need to also look at, can we use the value of the repeat procedure to drive intervention? Because typically, if you have a diagnosis, especially for dementia, if you do it in a repeat way, what happens more often than not is you start to learn the test. And so you're not actually really providing any insights. The unique advantage that we expect is able from our approach with music is that you're not having the learning and the training about how to perform the test, and therefore you don't see any test result anymore, but you're starting to become better because your brain is actually getting better. So it's a training effect. It's an intervention that we're trying to get to. But that requires so many different parameters, we can't incorporate that anymore with traditional algorithms. So we move into machine learning for that. And secondly, we're using the same approach that I discussed before. This is why all the introduction with GI, and that is a software as a medical device-based development using these frameworks from the FDA, from the European Union, from the NHS, to build a software system that can be commercially adopted. And that drove much bigger commercial interest. That's why we're working also with the TANS, with your network, with the JAIN network. Got strong interest in Japan now. Yayoi herself is based in Tokyo, and so the Japanese government, especially also the teams in Kyoto, hosting the most elderly population in the world, is the ones that is helping us move this circle forward, drive the development of AI in there, and then hopefully get this solution adopted so that we get the commercial success as well as the patient benefits, because that's what at the end is the biggest problem when we jump all the way back to the beginning of the presentation. Healthcare innovation just doesn't get adopted. System continues to be very expensive, but the worst is patients don't get the benefit at the end. Things die in the lab or in prototypes, and that's what we're trying to do with a more structured approach, with an evolutionary approach, and with an approach that creates a lot of trust and visibility of how things work. So that's what I'm working on these days. Quick tour de force through a couple of topics. Happy to, well, there's still a little of time left for you, field a couple of questions. Thomas,
very interesting, very interesting. Thank you very much already. And indeed, we have some questions about Epsilon. Robert Schmidt, what are the main results from Project Epsilon?
The main results are that we are able, even at the limited cohorts that we're going through right now, or that we have gone through with our clinical trials, that we have pretty good indicators, especially when it comes to early stage detection of Alzheimer's, to see at what stage is the patient roughly in their unfortunate journey towards Alzheimer. We still, to be very clear, also from a regulatory and compliance perspective, we're still looking at this, if it's not in research, in the wellness domain. So we're not making a diagnosis today, but this is why I called it brain fitness assessment and not Alzheimer diagnosis. But we are getting very strong indicators that we are on the right path with that, and the first introductions in the research domain have already been done. That's what the team at Bergen is doing for Alzheimer's as well as for Parkinson's.
Right, and the learning AI platform, what are the results from that, if we can ask?
So we're not there yet. So with Epsilon, that's exactly our stage. So the last slide is our development approach to get there. So we have figured out that the interventional aspects of our approach here should be successful, but we're not there yet. So we're right in the middle. We're fundraising. If anybody has good financial support as well. So we're fundraising to make this work. But we started out with traditional approach and getting and therefore some commercial success, but there's still a long journey to go.
Right. And why do you focus on dementia again?
So the early start that Yair especially, she's a piano teacher, by the way, I forgot to introduce that. So she's the one who's teaching others, but worked much more with children, with teenagers to train them, and observed a lot about how children have a hard time, sometimes based on some with ADHD and other also functional disturbances, had a hard time to pick up the training. And where did this come from? And what could you see as such a deep expert, as a piano teacher, and listening to how they're playing the notes and where there are mistakes? But it's a very difficult market to reach. And then we found, on the other side, there's dementia, which is very similar, where you also see this hand-eye sound interaction to be disturbed. And to be frank, that is just a much bigger market to achieve.
Yes. So you can help more people.
Exactly. Everybody gets older, me included, and therefore that's where the biggest need is, and comes back to the healthcare system as well, where's the biggest spend, and it just drives dramatically the moment that you move.
Exactly. And what do you think of the market then, or like the population that will have dementia, Alzheimer's? Like, it's growing, right?
It's grown dramatically. Everybody gets older. It seems to be just inevitable for many patient cohorts, for many people, that they will ultimately get any form of dementia. And the older you get, the bigger the chance that you end up in that cohort. If you die early enough, then you won't get that exposed too much. And then on the other side, we're still having a hard time to understand the underlying principles of what is actually wrong. Yesterday, there was a great news about a new drug that might finally give us a real intervention, a medical intervention. And but on the other side, we also know a lot is environmental, and a lot is about lifestyle that drives you towards dementia. And so any intervention that is physically active and that makes people work with their brain is an exercise. I'm an athlete. I exercise to be a good athlete. The brain needs exercise to function well.
Exactly. And about those drug development points in the like last months, right? Like we have news. Oh yeah, there's like a new drug. It's very promising for people with Alzheimer's, but that every time there are like very many side effects. So everybody is like very hopeful because that's the best, right? Like we have a medicine and then we can cure or prevent Alzheimer's. But like every time side effects come up.
May I say something? Maybe it is a good point to bring Yayo herself in this discussion, because she's the inventor of those systems. She's the piano player, Yayo. She's a classical piano player and she's a teacher. And she has seen her own hand coordination, left and right hand, and bring it into an AI concept. It is so marvelous that she's in those meetings today. Yayo, would you like to tell more about what is now the main value of your insight? You tell me about now we have an instrument that we can measure the cognitive increment or decrement in relation to drugs, etc., drugs development. Please say more, Yayo.
Sure. So thank you so much for introduction. I'm actually the designer of the app. As Hagen mentioned, music activity actually reveals a lot about how well your brain functions and also how not so well that your brain actually functions, and it's easier tool to actually visualize them and quantify them. That's one of the reasons why. And I have taught from children to actually elderly up to 83 years old. And you see a lot of responses, especially relating to visual motor encoding. So what you read, what you understand, and what you actually deliver with movement. And that helps quantify, and also that helps visualize. And as far as some of the questions here goes, so the machine learning, actually the AI part is more of a reinforcement learning model. So when you repeat, when you learn music, it's kind of like analog version of reinforcement learning. So we do monitor learning itself. Therefore, that's one of the reasons why the learning effect doesn't interfere with our accuracy. And so that's the AI part. And we exclusively work with a researcher from University of Tokyo for that. And he is specialized for reinforcement learning model associated with dopamine related model, because that's also involved in the music with the comprehension as the cognitive part and also as the deliberation of the movement. And that's one of the reasons why we monitor both Parkinson's and preclinical dementia. And as for the trust with the music, yes, it was difficult at the very beginning because everybody thought that, oh, music, it's just for fun. But when you actually play music, it really involves most part of your brain except smell and taste. So it really makes your brain work. And when you have that, when you have right measurement or right sensors to quantify that, then it translates better for the assessment of how well your, again, brain is functioning. So far we have done a few pilot studies with mild cognitive impairment with a healthy cohort in Canada, and also 2 in Europe for the Parkinson's. And so far that led to pretty concrete parameter ranges for the detection of preclinical dementia. So it's not strictly Alzheimer's, but more for the precursor stages of identifying the risk factors for developing MCI or the dementia. And that's where we are now.
That's a very good summary. Hans, is that also a full answer to your question?
Yeah, that's a very good answer. And this is very good to say here in the meeting, because you're explaining exactly what AI is. Putting handheld coordination, looks, what can we learn about that? so marvelous. You can see it in the chat as well. And from the outside, we have also outside public going from giving messages from our YouTube channel. And there's one that says this is a marvelous project. So Yayo, I'm very happy that you are in the field labs with me in Tokyo now and in Brazil. And yeah, thank you for this add-on. Thomas, please proceed.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the time and the last questions. Are there any questions at this moment? We talked about a lot already, also shortly about the JAIN China Summit. I'm looking at the chat as well for the last questions. This is the moment to network people or to ask your questions, give comments. And I'm gonna ask Martin, what did you think of this meeting, this monthly meeting?
Very interesting. I thought it was very interesting. There's a lot of things that's comes into mind listening to the good presentations. I surely gonna go to YouTube and look at them again. There's some parts that are really interested and some that are really close to what we do and want to achieve with our own solutions. So I would probably in the near future get in contact with some of you guys there to see to learn more and to see if there is some ways we could find a good solution for the world for the people with dementia.
Right. That's a nice summary as well. Thank you for that. Also, for everyone here, I would like to share a video of Vilans. It's a micro learning, especially made for this meeting. There's a lot of value in it. So if everybody can see my screen.
Yeah. Thomas, may I
Welcome everyone.
May I introduce first what is the effect of a micro learning?
Yes.
This is just a product which we developed from JAIN. Micro learning you can bring into the market and ask for feedback. This is a micro learning, and this is just the knowledge of a project Henk Herman has run, and now the insights, the results will be communicated to the market by JAIN and ask for feedback. And
right.
When the feedback is come, he can use it to develop further on. And it's exactly how we would like to develop the continuous learning network. Okay.
Please focus and get the value out of it. He's a very strong expert in this field.
Welcome everybody to this CareTech microlearning. I'm Henk Herman Nap and I have 20 years of experience in doing research on CareTech. Well, today's microlearning is about business modeling and in particular deployment percentage. It might not be the correct wording. I'm not an economist. I'm a psychologist from origin. But it all has to do about the percentage with which you can deploy certain CareTech and how it influences the business modeling. Yeah, deployment percentage. Here a use case, it's a realistic scenario. What you see here is a cost-benefit analysis. Well, on the left you will see the cost for product X. It will cost you $10 per day per client. And on the right you will see the benefits. Well, benefits can of course also be related to quality of life, etc. But here we just focus on the hours and the dollars. So the benefits of this CareTech will be a reduction of 2 hours of care per day per client. Well, on a yearly basis, this is 730 hours. Well, if you look at the possible reduction for a care home with 100 clients, it will be 73,000 hours of care per year. And we could even calculate a macro calculation. Let's say there are 100,000 clients in care homes. We could save approximately 35,000 FTE. So that's really a lot. And these type of cost-benefit analysis, we see this many times. But if you look at, let's say, the research that we have been doing, the cost will be the same, the first benefits will be the same. But what we found is that most care technologies cannot be deployed 100%. So a lot of times it's just 5% or maybe 10%, 15%, and that also varies per location over time. So when the percentage of deployment is much lower, you can imagine that the reduction for a care home will also be much lower, and also the savings on a macro level. Yeah, so this micro-learning is about what percentage of people can benefit from the product or service. Keep this in mind whenever you do business modeling. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you next time.
So thank you very much for watching the micro-learning. And Henk Herman wants to make more micro-learnings, which is really nice, really informative, because we live in a digital world, right? And that information can be transferred this way. So we can send it by email, we can send it over WhatsApp, Telegram, WeChat. Like how many platforms do you have these days? Sakaki, right? You use WeChat? I saw you laughing.
Oh, Sasaki is from Tokyo, and Tokyo is just allowed to be on YouTube, etc., and on WhatsApp.
Is WeChat not allowed there? Because I use WeChat. We do.
What is allowed?
We don't really have that that much.
Okay,
They use more Line.
sorry?
They use that app called Line. That's the
Line.
most popular one.
Right. There's so many platforms, right? So because we work with China, we use WeChat. It's like the same as WhatsApp. Good for sending files, etc. And the JAIN China Summit is going to be really interesting. And of course, I'm saying it because, yeah, I work in JAIN as a co-founder. But not only that, like we have a Nobel Prize winner this time. And that says something, right? Like it's distinguishing. If we talk about science and health. So please stay involved, if I can ask you, and let's work together, because there are a lot of possibilities. Also, like Hagen is saying, like there are many people that we can help, and technology is a solution. And again, I would like to ask if there are any questions at this moment or comments. Otherwise, we will close this monthly meeting. Next time we will not have a monthly meeting. The JAIN China Summit will be there. It's like 4 days. It's like, yeah, just a big event. Especially the Chinese team wants to organize it big. Like they ask academicians, maybe you know the term. So in the Netherlands, you have like academici, but an academician is a bit higher, like with more influence, because not like a Nobel Prize winner or something like that, but you know, like did a lot of good research. So they're asking those speakers, and we work together with Alzheimer Netherlands on this. And it's 4 days, like I said, like they want to attract 10,000 attendees. So a little bit bigger than this meeting. You're invited again, and thank you for today, and talk to you soon. Yes, have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Robert, hoe is het? Wil ik nog blijven? Jennifer? Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Yes, we didn't talk much. And Robert is... Jennifer, do you hear me, by the way? Yes? Or are you...
Hi, Thomas.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Young professionals, if you want to go, you can go. If you want to stay, you can stay. So everybody's busy, so we understand.
Kan jij, Thomas, kan jij de chat opnemen?
Ja, de chat